Hey, what's going on, guys? 118 Set Shadow here. Today we've got a lot of different items to cover between interesting gains that we've seen, but there have been a few more drops than usual that I also want to go through. So let's go ahead and get started. So our first item for today is going to be Dark Alice, which this card has it ultimately it's been relatively the same in terms of its price overall. It's been creeping up a bit on its base legendary, but it still has a lot of listings available. Currently $4.88 for the base price, and the super legendary's base price is currently $6 with 22 listings right now. And then you go for the ultimate rare, which was struggling to see itself go any lower than 70 and hold. Well, we're at $58 right now, and the market price is still 68, so we'll see how that ends up moving over time. Alice right now is still a pretty good deck to play overall for Abyss, but we'll see where it moves on once we get to set 4. Beauty and the Beast, which is still a very strong contender for Forestcraft, is still pretty cheap to pick up, at least on its own. The legendary is $1.45 right now with a market price of $1.91. And the super legendary is available for $12.50 right now with a market price of almost $15. Now, mind you, because it's a Fable deck, Alice will still keep the price up for the overall deck, but your other pieces like Beauty and the Beast herself are really cheap to get. Then you've also got a different card from Forestcraft, Cosmo Fang, which ultimately doesn't have a specific deck that it fits into. It can work with Beast in general, or you can play it in combo based decks too, where your whole aim is also to make sure that you can play cards so that you can evolve it and either take something off your opponent's board by throwing it to hand or just destroying it outright. But this card is $2 for its base legendary and $4.17 for the super legendary right now. It has an evolved form as well where it's under $1 to pick up for the legendary, and the super legendary is currently higher than the super legendary at $5.67. The market price exceeds it as well. Valiant Fencer, which has been notorious for its immense spike in value. Hero Sword is a popular deck, which led to the increase, but it's calmed down since then and now has a base price of around $17.50. If you want the super legendary, then that's $28.50. And you look at the Evos, they're also down in price, or at least the regular one is, at $3.50 with a market price of $4.84. But the super legendary is kind of short on quantity at 7 listings to start at 10.03 and a market price of $9.86. So it's still more than it was before, but at least it's not the $30 it was before. Narita Brian is also a good piece for Sword to play, or just pure Uma in general. And it's down in price from the highs that it was seeing recently, and is at $7.40 base price. More or less, you can get a lot of copies for under $10 right now. It's got 19 listings, and it's a bit on a. It's getting back to a downtrend right now, but it's been a bumpy uptrend for this card, and it's still a good contender to play in general, just for how strong it is. Something that has dropped off a bit is Leonidas' evolved form. Given that it's a gold evolve, it maintains high value if it's a powerful follower. But in this case, Leonidas dropped, and it used to be a pretty solid 5 or above. Now we're seeing it sell more along the lines of $3 to $4 instead, which is still not a big drop, but ultimately players are not consistently picking this up for $5 like they used to anymore. Swordsman is in an interesting position where it's one of those silvers from set 1 that maintains a higher value, but it's got a lot of listings back on the market right now, 30 altogether, but it's still selling pretty consistently around the $2 mark. So I imagine it'll still stay there for a while, as this card has effectively found itself to be a staple or just a really favorite tech amongst all sword players. Riko Kashimoto is going a bit up in value again, where the base price is now $17 and it has only 6 listings right now. It maintains itself around the $15 mark or higher these days, and all the listings available are 20 or lower with the exception of one, which is really out there at $60. But Kashimoto's still going to be a relative tech for a lot of decks going forward. It's time to talk about some old starter deck cards that are going up in value for being exclusives. Acolyte's Light is one of them from the Havencraft deck. This card is now a base of almost $5 right now, and players have been picking this up for $3 to $5 recently. And that's where all the listings stand at this point, at around $5 for this card. It's very likely that we're going to see more play of this as we go forward, being a generic overall that's also a quick. And then there's also Pinion Prayer, which I completely forgot does not have a second printing in set 1. I thought it did, which is why I didn't really pay attention to it, but I missed on that. This card is now $5.96 base price, and it has sold for $6 recently, but all the other listings so far have sold for 25 cents or under. But the current available listings are all at 6. And if we take a look at how much the deck itself is worth, the base listing right now is $13, meaning that since you'll be getting 3 copies of these cards in there, you're better off just buying the deck individually. So there's no need to pick up the singles at this price right now. And the same can be said with Dragon's Oracle, which I pointed out before. Players had been starting to buy this at 10 or higher, but that's fallen off. It's currently at $9 base, but nobody has bought this since the beginning of March. So at the very least, it looks like players are picking up the decks instead. But if decks run out and this card doesn't see a reprint, this thing could go sky high at some point. Lesser Mummy is a card that I'm a little surprised it doesn't have a buyout right now. But I suppose that's also because we haven't seen as much in terms of Necrocharge on Abyss. But Lesser Mummy does get played every so often with the next few formats, and currently is available pretty cheap at 10 cents to start. And then its Evo, it does have an Evo. It's at 9 cents to start, but a market price of 44 cents. So I'd be careful of this one. If you do intend to play it, this is something that you could pick up as a single, as opposed to picking up the deck itself, which is still going to be more expensive. John the Ark is... I noted how this card was going back up in value for its base legendary, and it still is, very slightly. It had a drop-off around mid-February, and it sells for $4 pretty consistently right now, but available listings make their way into the $5 range. So definitely something to watch out for, as John is one of the more reliable bodyboard wipes that you can play in Havencraft right now. I talked about Nature's Guidance and its promo with its old value of around $7, but it got bought out to the point of 10 with 3 listings right now. The market price on it is $5.49 right now, and the regular silver still has around 19 listings and is around $1 to pick up. So not much has changed on that front. It's just this foil promo that is really starting to see an uptick in value right now. I talked about all the new promos that we're going to be seeing for Tournament Series 5. And we are getting 2 hard-to-get legendaries, or rather, we're getting 1 hard-to-get legendary in the pack, which is Felice for Rune. I believe her name was Felice. But just keep in mind that, similar to what happened with Arya, Fairy Princess, I imagine it could start out at a good price valuation, but eventually it will likely fall off over time. Although, maybe it'll maintain a little more, being that once Earthright has a lot more value in the long run, it has the potential to maintain itself as a staple for Earthright based decks, which is the way it plays. Aria, unfortunately, doesn't see as much play right now, and it's currently $10, but it hasn't really dropped off much farther than that. So it is still a very nice looking art, which I think contributes to the fact that it maintains at least $10. Can it get lower? I don't think so, given what it is. And it might see play here and there as we go along. And our last card for today is Surefire Bullet, which currently has its gold from set 2 and the promo that you get from the showdown right now. And price-wise, they're still apart from each other. The promo is currently close to $5 and 9 listings, while the set 2 version is much farther down than it used to be. It's got 32 listings at $1.25 to start and a market price of $157. But this is something that still sees play over time, so it's not a bad price to pick it up at just $1.25, especially given that it is a gold. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys later.